So recently in my previous videos, I've been talking about the Hoboken train crash and how it ties into all kinds of stuff that syncs back up to baseball. It ties into Michael Jordan when Michael Jordan was playing baseball. And I think that it is connected to the Chicago Cubs playing the Cleveland Indians in the World Series. If you're new to what I'm talking about, please check out the links I'll leave in the description. I'm going to leave a link called How to Gematria. And that is how I'm coming up with the numbers that I'm going to talk about. It's basically the elite people, the Freemasons, the Zionist Jews, the Jesuits, the people who run our world. It is a system, a language that they have developed by coding numbers into words, and they control everything with it. The media, the sports leagues, the movie industry. How exactly all of this is being done, I do not completely know, but I know that there are people who know how to abuse this system, and they're using it. It's very obvious. You can watch previous videos. Anyway, in regards to the Hoboken train crash, I talked about how the Cubs and the Pittsburgh Pirates played that day, and they tied, and it was the first tie since the year 2005. I'm not going to re-explain a whole bunch of stuff, but I also talked about how the Indians, their game against Detroit that day was postponed, and then they didn't have to remake it up. So I thought I'd look at other postponed games that happened throughout the season. And it just so happens that the Cleveland Indians' first game of the season was postponed, and they were playing Boston, or they were supposed to play Boston, and then now they're playing them in the playoffs. And actually, there was two games in that series that got postponed. It was the one on 4-4, and then one on 4-7. And then they also had another postponed game against the White Sox, the team that I've talked about that's connected to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan played for the Birmingham Barons. Terry Francona, the coach of the Indians right now, he was the coach of the Birmingham Barons when Michael Jordan was there. He's also born on the 112th day of the year. We're going into the 112th World Series. He's 57 years old. If you write out the word World Series or the phrase in Gematria, it equals 57. Anyway, I found an article about that opening game of the season, and they said the last time that the Indians had a home opener postponed, they went on to post the best record in the league and advance to the American League Championship Series. But what's interesting about that is that they ended up losing before making the World Series to the Boston Red Sox. And you know, an interesting thing I never looked, this was not the opening game of the season, it was the opening home game, but they don't really clarify that in this article. They talk about how, of course, Cleveland and Seattle played into the 5th inning on opening day. Then it was blustery conditions, blah, 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 and it goes on to say that year the Indians instead ventured to Miller Park in Milwaukee to play the Angels to start their home slate. And I'll show why that's significant in regards to the Cubs as well, but it also says they finished the season with 96 and 66, the regular season. I'll also show that as we move along here, because right now the Indians have 96 wins on this season, including the 2 wins in the playoffs. Anyway, the first game this year, they ended up remaking it up on April 5th, which is the 96th day of the year this year because of the leap year. Also 4-5, which is interesting. That's the year that the Cubs were cursed by the curse of the Billy Goat. The last time the Indians won the World Series was the 45th World Series. So, the last time this happens, the Indians finished with a regular season record of 96 wins. They remake the game this year, the opening game up on the 96th day of the year. If you remember, earlier in this season too, the Indians had a 14-game win streak, and it began with the White Sox, Michael Jordan's old team, but it came to an end against the Blue Jays on July 2nd, and they lost 9-6. They also stayed on 49 wins. What is interesting in regards to the 96, that's the only thing that possibly makes me think that the Indians won't make the World Series. Anyway, the second game that they got remade up, it was the game from April 7th. And they remade it up on August 15th of 2016. Notice that the Indians lost here as well, and they stayed on 49 losses. So just interesting in regards to their streak. They stayed on 49 wins, and then in this made-up game, they stayed on 49 losses. But Cleveland Indians also equals 67. It makes sense they would stay on 67 wins. Anyway, if you go from 4-7 to the day this game was played on April 15th, a span of 4 months and 8 days. And if you remember, Michael Jordan's first game with the Barons was on 4-8. Jordan born on the 48th day of the year. The Indians haven't won since 1948. Also, I know the reason that they remade this game up on August 15th, because this year it was the 228th day of the year. If you watch my previous videos that I'm going to leave in the description, I talked about 228 being very significant. The Cubs tied the Pittsburgh Pirates. That equals 228. They're both cursed in a roundabout way through Detroit. The Indians picked up Harvey Kuhn in 1960 to replace Rocky Colavito. Harvey Kuhn just so happened to die on February 28th of 1988, the exact same day that Aroldis Chapman was born. And if you go from February 28th to the day the Cubs picked up Chapman, a span of 148 days, Cleveland Indians, the big way, equals 148. Also, the word death in, I believe, English gematria equals 228. And 228 is the 59th day of the year, and the word kill equals 59. Michael Jordan, though, equals 59. Toronto Blue Jays equal 59. The date numerology of the game was even 59, 8 plus 15 plus 20 plus 16, 59. So possibly it's something positive for the Indians, but that makes it seem like it's bad. But I've talked about in like Wisconsin and whatnot, sometimes being connected to the kill number is actually good. It just depends on the situation. So, possibly too, maybe the 59 is all about the Toronto Blue Jays winning. But I noticed the Indians pitcher also got injured just before the playoffs. He broke his hand. It's this guy right here. But what's interesting, he's number 59. So maybe they just had to get him out of the game. He's probably faking his injury. Had to get him out of the postseason. That way they don't get killed because they don't have the 59 connection. The game that this happened on was also the same day we got all the Chelsea trash bomb and the Minnesota mall stabbing. All that stuff that I've talked about, how it's super connected. I talked about possibly to the Red Sox, but it's also in a roundabout way connected to a good thing for the Indians. And the reason I even looked this up is because of the fact that they do all of the instant replay stuff when they challenge a call. They do it in Chelsea. So interesting, we got the Chelsea trash bomb stories and whatnot. And the Indians even got their 148th game during this game. And of course they played Detroit. But Cleveland Indians equals 148. The guy who hit him with the ball, his name equals 112. We're going to the 112th World Series. So, possibly just a story they had to do to get number 59 out of the game and whatnot, out of the playoffs. It even makes a lot of sense because he has 44 career wins right now. Kill is the 44 is the kill number. I mean, it's so obvious. Win-losses this season, 11-8. The word death also equals 118. And, I showed that a whole bunch of times in the Wisconsin-Michigan State video. Bart Houston even replaced after completing 44 passes. Their field goal kicker, made 44 career field goals, and then now he's out for the season. Wisconsin equals 44. Paul Chryst equals 44. Kill equals 44. Jim Harbaugh just got his 44th college career win against Wisconsin. Anyway, what's interesting about the 2007 season, so the Indians ended up playing their home opener, I guess, in Milwaukee, and they played the Angels. They even beat the Angels 7-6 or 6-7. Cleveland Indians equals 67. But this year, the Chicago Cubs They opened up the season against the Angels, and the first time the Cubs had a game that was postponed was against Milwaukee. So it just makes me wonder. And the game that was postponed against Milwaukee, they even remade it up 112 days later on August 16th. The Cubs also had a postponed game against the Padres on 5/9. Back to the Future equals 59. 2007 was also 59 years since the Indians last won a World Series in 1948. In regards to Back to the Future too, I don't think it's any coincidence that today or tonight when the Cubs were playing, on TBS, Back to the Future was playing. I mean, you could say whatever, Back to the Future, it's on all the time, blah, blah, blah. But it's very interesting that Back to the Future is on while the Cubs are playing their first game of the playoffs. I talked about how Back to the Future 3 is really connected into this season as well. Anyway, in 1948, when the Indians won their last World Series, they beat the Boston Red Sox in a one-game playoff to make the World Series, and then they went on to the World Series and they beat the Boston Braves. So they beat both Boston teams, and, now they're playing Boston. I even went back to the movie Major League 2, I talked about in the last video. That's when the Cubs beat the White Sox to make the World Series. Then they don't tell you what happens after that, but the Indians make the World Series, and they beat the White Sox, but they start their winning streak after they get in a big fight against the Red Sox, and then they even beat the Blue Jays to clinch the division. And then they beat the White Sox to make the World Series. They don't really show you, in between. So just interesting that it involves, the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, the two teams that, most likely they're going to play. Possibly the Red Sox will come back. Possibly the Rangers will come back. But I'm just saying in general, I guess. Or I'm just saying that that's a possibility of how it would play out. Anyway, during Game 1 against the Red Sox, we got this stat on the screen. And they didn't really say much about it, but they talked about Tyler Naquin here. He's the first outfielder to start postseason games since 1948. I believe they mean the rookie. It doesn't really make that much sense. First outfielder to start postseason games since 1948. What about the other outfielders that are starting? That doesn't make that much sense. It has to be the first rookie outfielder. But interesting, just in regards to the year 48, the last time they won the World Series. His name in Gematria equals 57, just like World Series. He's even from Houston. He grew up in the greater Houston area. Houston equals 112. He also, earlier this year, had an inside-the-park walk-off home run beating the Blue Jays on August 19th. And that's just interesting because it was 67 days before the World Series. Cleveland Indians equals 67. Also, remember last year, Game 1 of the 111th World Series, when the Royals got up to bat, they led off with an in-the-park home run, making the score, 1-0, or there was one run in the first inning on the first pitch of the 111th World Series that came to an end on 11-1 because Matt Harvey wouldn't come out of the game after pitching. He wouldn't come out of the game until he pitched 111 pitches. Anyway, also in regards to 67, the World Series this year begins on October 25th, the day that leaves 67 days in the year even. But this guy right here, Larry Doby, it says, was the last guy outfielder to start, or whatever, so he started in 1948. His name equals 48. He was born on a date numerology of 48. He helps the Indians win the World Series in 48. He's also the second black player after Jackie Robinson, which has just been super fitting to this year. All of the race and civil rights stuff in the news constantly. He's also the first black player to hit a home run in the World Series. And he's also, along with this guy, Satchel Paige, was the first black players to win the World Series. And this guy was also on the 1948 Indians. And this guy, everything about him, it's super racist and it's a super joke. And, this is the type of stuff that has been going on all throughout history. There's two numbers that are super stamped on black people. It's 42 and 59. And I have tons and tons and tons of examples of showing this. That's why Jackie Robinson wore the number 42. The super N-word, when you write it out in gematria, it equals 42. And the way you write it out is even 5 plus 9, like 59, plus 7 plus 7 plus 5 plus 9. Anyway, this guy supposedly joined the Major League Baseball at the age of 42, right? He was 42 years old. His name equals 59. Slave equals 59. Negro equals 59. Cotton picker equals 59. Tobacco equals 59. Jigaboo equals 59. Motown Records came out in the year 59. Rasta equals 59. Blues equals 59. Even if you go clear back in history, you have like the guy John Brown, who had the raid on Harper's Ferry. He was born on 5/9. He died in the year 59. All kinds of stuff with him. The Civil War came to an end on 5/9 of 1865. February, Black History Month, that ends on the 59th day of the year normally. It even has the 42nd day of the year in it. In a leap year, it ends on the 60th day. The super N-word equals 60 the big way. February is also the only month that equals 42 in gematria. So, go figure. This guy supposedly joins the league when he's age 42. His name equals 59. He even signed on his 42nd birthday with the Indians. And his birthday was on 7/7, the middle of the super N-word. He even supposedly played baseball until 1965, which would have made him 59 years old. So he comes in the league at the age of 42, leaves at the age of 59. His name equals 59. I mean, no way. It's just some sick joke that they love to do to these people. I bet that's not even his real name, or at least it's not really how he truly spelled it when he was born. His name also, his last name equals 68, and he died on 6/8 too. Just wanted to point that out. But, I mean, you see this all throughout history. It's pretty crazy. If you read up on this guy, a lot of interesting stuff too. There wasn't any sources on here, but supposedly he was sad because he wasn't the first black player like Jackie Robinson. Who knows how true that is, but just interesting to think about. I suggest checking that guy out. It seemed kind of interesting. So anyway, I want to just talk a little bit more about 48 in regards to the Indians. So they show that guy and how he was the first outfielder to start since 1948, rookie outfielder. The Indians owner, his name's Larry Dolan. Larry Dolan equals 48. Also, Terry Francona, I think I said this earlier, but the first time he won the World Series and broke the curse or whatever with the Red Sox. I guess he didn't break the curse, but he won a World Series when he was 48. The first time he did it was when he was 45. And, the Indians lost one in World Series, the 45th World Series. But look at his coaching record. So he did 4 years with Philly, 8 years with Boston. Now this is his 4th year with Cleveland. A lot like 48 and 84, or 48, the reflections of each other. And if you go back, we talked a lot about the number 48 in regards to the Cleveland Indians. James equals 48. It is even connected to the death of Harambe. Harambe equals 48. There was even a game where the power went out, the Spurs versus the Grizzlies. It was with 1:58 in the second quarter. If you read out 158, it equals 223, 223, which is the 48th prime number. In all of the big headlines for the Cleveland Cavaliers, they always showed Kyrie Irving, then LeBron James, then Kevin Love, 2230, 223. When the power went out in the Spurs vs. Grizzlies game, the only thing that stayed lit was Sirius XM radio, and it was 2 times that equaled 158. The score was even 25-23, a total score of 48. Also, in the Rockets and the Warriors, one of their playoff games, the screen turned to green. It turned to a green screen, and the total score was 158 points. There was just a whole lot of 48 in regards to the Cleveland Cavaliers winning. It was even super connected to the royal family. I talked about a big King Charles and the English Civil War type theme, and if Queen Elizabeth dies, then Prince Charles will become King Charles III. The first two King Charleses were the Charleses during the English Civil War, or the kings during the English Civil War. And just something to think about, but I talked about how it would be somewhat fitting for the Cavs to win, or the Indians to win. The Cavs won. In UFC, we had Stipe Miocic win. And in regards to football, the Broncos won, but the Cleveland Indians in 1902 were even called the Broncos. So possibly a connection, possibly nothing. Also, if the Indians do win the World Series, I think Donald Trump will become the president. So there's been lots of stuff foreshadowing to Hillary Clinton. So possibly the Indians won't win the World Series, but if they do, very interesting. Donald Trump equals 48. You know, the Republican National Convention was even in Cleveland at Quicken Loans Arena. Plus, it would be 68 years since 1948. John Trump equals 68. Prince Charles equals 68. Also, if you watch the previous video that I just made, talk about Michael Jordan more, and the number 114, LeBron James equals 114. The best player in 1948 for the Indians when they won the World Series was also their coach. It was this guy, Lou Boudreau. And, you know, he died on the 222nd day of 2001, which, so the anniversary this year would be the 223rd day of the year. But in regards to the royal family, this guy was born on 7/17 of the year 17. And that sticks out a whole lot because that's when the House of Windsor was created. That's what Queen Elizabeth is in. The next royal person to become the king, supposedly they're going to get rid of the House of Windsor and it's going to be Mountbatten Windsor. So, I mean, it's been 99 years since the creation of the House of Windsor. 99 is also just super significant. I'll talk about why it's connected to the Queen in a minute. But Rick Vaughn on the movie Major League, who pitches he's the closer in the game to beat the White Sox to go to the World Series. He wears number 99, so I think it's a significant number for the Indians. Queen Elizabeth II, though, also surpassed Queen Victoria for the longest reigning British/English monarch of all time last year on 9/9. 9/9 is a super big day in regards to political assassination as well. I'm not going to go into a big old rant with that, but just note that Donald Trump talked about how he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair last year. We got a whole bunch of Batman stuff in the news that same weekend. Batman equals 51. Cleveland equals 51. The Cavs won for the first time in 51 years. Quicken Loans equals 51. LeBron James equals 51. But Donald Trump is exactly 15 years, 51 days older than Obama. And the lady who Queen Elizabeth II surpassed, Queen Victoria died exactly 51 years, 15 days before Queen Elizabeth became the queen. So, you know, the royal family, very, very connected in regards to Cleveland. Also, this guy, he died on August 10th, which in most parts of the world they read it as 10/8, a lot like 108, the big number connected to the Chicago Cubs. And later in this guy's career, he was even a radio announcer for the Cubs. And then in 1960, randomly, he became the coach for one season, and then he went back to radio announcing. But, you know, very interesting. 1960 was the year of the Rocky Colavito trade from the Indians to Detroit that happened on the 108th day of the year. Also, if you include this year and that year, it was 57 seasons ago. So this is the 57th season since 1960. Interesting too, that same year, 1960, the Cubs only won 60 games, and they lost 94 games. Cleveland Indians equals 94. There's something super connected to 1994 and Michael Jordan when he played for the White Sox. This guy even made his major league debut on 9-9, right? So very, very connected to a lot of big things. So, in regards to 48 and the royal family, King Charles I died at age 48. If you write out Charles II, it equals 48. Prince Charles was born in the year 48. I mean, it's a very big number. Lou Boudreau equals 45 and 135. You know, just once again interesting. The year the Cubs were cursed was in 45. The Cubs won World Series 4 and 5. That's the last time they won the World Series. The Indians won the 45th World Series. The Indians also won the game 1, 4-5 or 5-4, depending on how you look at it. And this Lou Boudreau guy, he played for 15 seasons, he coached for 15 seasons, and this year just so happened to be the 15th anniversary of that guy dying. And the game 1 of the Red Sox and the Indians was on a controversial call, a strike call or whatever, on number 15 of the Red Sox. Even this guy's, the 15th anniversary of his death just so happened to be 57 days before all of that happened. Number 15 for the Red Sox, the guy who struck out then, he even was 1 of 5 in the game. He had 15 home runs in the regular season this year. If you write out 15, it equals 65, just like the word Prince, just like this guy's name, number 15 here. So just interesting. Also, I'm not sure where exactly it fits in, but number 22 for the Indians, Kipnis, he hit the home run against the pitcher who was wearing number 22, and he made this, and the score was 2-2 at the time. So he made the score 2-3, but it was number 22 pitching to number 22 when the score was 2-2, and he hits the home run. You see this all the time. I'm not even joking. I talked about it clear back when I first started noticing that sports were rigged, when Mike Moustakas hit his 4th postseason home run in the 4th inning, making the score 4-4. I believe he even hit it on the 4th pitch and it was exactly 4 p.m. when I looked at my cell phone. It might not have been the 4th pitch, but there was a ton of 4s in there. I also thought it was funny, because I don't really watch baseball, but there's a guy in the Indians, one guy's name's Coco Crisp or whatever. I mean, come on. But it just reminds me of a movie, reminds me of Major League, but they also have the guy named Carlos Santana, who of course born on 4/8. But it doesn't Carlos Santana make you think of this guy? The guy that made the song with Rob Thomas. I'm sure he's got tons of other stuff that he's famous for. I just never really listened to him. But Carlos Santana and Gematria equals 48 with the S exception. Also 138. Also 57 like World Series. But Donald Trump equals 48 and 138. I'm sure there's more connected to this guy that I just don't know about because I don't know that much about him, but he was born on July 20th, which can be written 20/7. If you write out the word Charles in Jewish gematria, it equals 207. If you write out the word 207, it equals 197, just like the word Prince, just like LeBron. And you know what? I'm just going to throw this in here. This video is already long enough. So game 2 tonight, the Indians won 6-0. Reminds me a lot of 60, like the year of the curse of Rocky Colavito, the year that this guy was the coach of the Chicago Cubs out of nowhere. Interesting, when I looked at the 1960 World Series, it was the Pittsburgh Pirates defeating the New York Yankees. And a lot of this goes back to the Hoboken train crash that I was talking about, where the Cubs tied the Pirates, and They equal 228. But it says that it was one of two exceptions in regards to the X-Cub factor. The X-Cub factor is basically any team that had 3 or more Cubs on the team since the curse of the Billy Goat, they haven't won except for 1960 and 2001. If you're at an X-Cub factor, it equals 46 at Gematria, just like Chicago Cubs. 1960 was also the 57th World Series, so a very special World Series. The 57th World Series equals 57. I also noticed that it was the Yankees who lost in both of them. They lost to the Pirates, and then they lost to the Cardinals. Not sure what exactly that means, but interesting. Maybe it's something to do with the Chapman trade from the Yankees. Another interesting thing, I went back and looked at how many World Series each team has been in and what the record is. The Indians right now have a 2-3 record in World Series. So if they make it, they win, they'd be 3-3, which would be very fitting because Cleveland equals 33. But, who knows? It would also be the 6th World Series they've ever been in. So just interesting in regards to them having the 6-0 win. And if you watch the game, I'm not even joking, number 6 for the Indians, he's the runner who scored the 6th run in the 6th inning. 666. The word prophecy equals 666. He's even really known he has a nickname called La Piñata because he gets beamed so many times. He's even is tied for the record for most times being hit by a pitch in a game, which is 3 times, and it's happened to him multiple times. He's also the last person that this has happened to, but the last time it happened was on the 112th day of the year, which is the same day that Prince died. It was Queen Elizabeth's birthday. And, Prince said that all we can go by is prophecy. So interesting, he's number 6. He scores the 6th run in the 6th inning. He even has a 923 in his stats, which was super good for the Cavs this year. LeBron James and Jewish Gematria equals 923. I even talked about how he shot 9 of 23 on 11-4. And then Kyrie Irving shot 9 of 23 146 days later. A whole bunch of stuff in regards to that, but even the year before, the Golden State Warriors were the team who was shooting the 9 of 23, and they did it against the Bulls, and then they break all the Bulls records and whatnot. But moving on, just wanted to point out that he had 9 home runs this year and 23 career home runs. I also went and looked at some of the other teams, and it says that the Red Sox are 8-4 right now. If I can find it here before my battery dies, but it says the Red Sox are 8-4. Maybe it's farther up. 8-4 in the World Series. And there's absolutely no way if they make the World Series that they win. They could possibly make it. The next time the Red Sox make the World Series, I guarantee they will lose to be 8-5 because Boston equals 85, Red Sox equal 85. So if they did somehow make a comeback and make the World Series this year, I guarantee they are losing. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I've been talking forever. Just wanted to present a whole bunch of information. I'll leave a link to this blog as well so you can come and read my blog so you don't have to listen to me talk and try to explain it. Sometimes, like tonight, I just don't know how to organize it. I've made some of these posts days before, trying to go back and look at them and organize it all and put it together for it to make sense. It gets difficult sometimes. I wish I had more time to sit down and just make a video after I make a post. It would make a lot more sense, but whatever. Have a good one. I think that a lot of this foreshadowing is for the Indians and the Cubs to be in the World Series. I also think the Indians, I don't know. I didn't really look that much into it, but the game is on 10-9, Game 3. It's in Boston. Boston won the 109th World Series. I wouldn't doubt if the Indians lose Game 3. But who knows? Like I said, I didn't look that in depth. I'm just going by. I know that 109 seemed to be special around the Red Sox, and then the game is on 10-9. But, I mean, the Indians coach being the coach for Michael Jordan seems to be a lot of foreshadowing to 94, with the Indians getting 94 wins this year and equaling 94. So, whatever. Leave it at that. Have a good one.